Hello, Enlightened22, and today we're going to learn all about anvils. Let's start at the basics. Anvils have three purposes: renaming items, combining items, and repairing items. All of these have enchantment costs, which is how many levels it will consume to do this action. And the maximum number of levels that you can use in survival is 39. If I add one more level to it, it becomes too expensive, and now I can't rename it or do whatever I want to do. That's important to note because that determines how many times you can work an item. So there's a couple things that determine that level. The first thing is the cost of whatever action you're doing. So repairing, renaming, and combining have costs associated with them. And then the other big one is the prior work penalty. So if we fly right on up here, we see the formula comes right here. It's 2 to the n minus 1, where n is the number of times worked. So if it's worked once, the next time you enchant it, it will cost 1 extra level. All the way to the point if you work it 5 times, the next time you enchant it, it will cost, or do anything, it will cost 31 extra levels. So most times you can work something in survival is 6 times, because that 7th time there's going to be a penalty of 63. So to give an example of that, if I rename it, the enchantment cost of renaming is 1. Okay, so I've renamed it once, but now I'll have a prior work penalty of 1 as well, so this time it costs 2. And now it has a prior work penalty of 3, 7, I don't know how to count, 15, all the way to 31. So, prior work penalty of 31 and a cost of 1 for renaming. That's how that works. Now we're going to take a look at repairing items in the anvil. Obviously this can be used for enchanted items, all of that, but for simplicity's sake, I'm using completely unworked items, both a chest plate and a shovel with 1 durability. There's 2 ways to repair items. You can repair it by using another one of that. So I'm using a full durability shovel to repair a low durability shovel, and that has an enchantment cost of 2. You can also repair it with whatever the material is: diamond, iron, leather, or wood, or gold. And that has enchantment cost of 1 per material used. Now an interesting note here is that the material, so in this case diamonds, will repair it by 25%, no matter what item it is. So for something like a shovel, obviously you don't want to use 4 diamonds to repair it, that would be pointless. However, for a chest plate, you can also repair it with just 4 diamonds, which is 100% worthwhile. And another thing to note about this is, as we were talking about, there's work costs for everything. And repairing this with 4 diamonds counts as 1 item of work. So at this point, if let's use 3 diamonds, this costs 3, okay, I repair it, this 1 diamond will now cost 2, because I repaired it once, so it has a work cost of 1, if that makes sense. And for that reason, even if you're doing something like diamond chest plates where you want to use the diamonds, you will want to wait until it breaks and then repair it with all 4 diamonds rather than being like, oh, it's quarter low, let's repair it with 1 diamond. And that's important to know because that means if you're repairing any armor, you want to repair it with the material, while if you're repairing any tools, you want to repair it with a copy of itself to save your diamonds. Now let's talk a little bit about enchanted books. So one thing you can do is add enchantments to your gear by using an enchanted book. Now these books have different multipliers, ranging from 1 to 4. So Thorns, for example, has a multiplier of 4, so Thorns 1 costs 4 levels, while Thorns 3 costs 12 levels. Efficiency is an example of a book that has a multiplier of 1, so Efficiency 1 costs 1 level, and Efficiency 5 costs 5 levels to add. Another very important thing to note here is if I combine 2 Efficiency 1 books, and get efficiency 2. Well, it costs 2 levels, but the big thing here is now this book has been worked once. And when you're combining items, the prior worked amount of time is added to both items, or is taken into account for both items. So efficiency 2 will now cost 3. And let's say I used efficiency 1 books and worked my way all the way up to an efficiency 5 book. Suddenly, this will cost my shovel 20 levels instead of 5, which is a very big deal. So what we get from that is your efficiency 1 through 3 books, you pretty much don't ever want to use because combining them just makes it more expensive and means you'll be able to repair your tool less after you create it. And this is also very important because that means that when you're enchanting and making a tool, if you make a diamond pick, let's say you're making your Silk Touch, Efficiency 5, Unbreaking 3 pick. If you make that thing from scratch, it's not going to be able to be repaired as much because you're going to have to work it 3 times to make it, as opposed to if you enchant it and you get Efficiency 4, Unbreaking 3, Silk Touch 1, and just add 1 book to it, then you can repair it 5 times in the future. The last and probably most complicated part is now combining tools with different enchants. So, to understand this, I'll give some examples. We have our Silk Touch pick, so if we add a Silk Touch book, it costs 4 levels. Okay, but if we try to add Silk Touch using a tool, it costs 8 levels. There's also 1 more because of the prior working penalty. And how this works, and the reason this happens, is because the tool on the left is our target. That's what we're adding enchants and durability to, while the tool or book on the right is what's being consumed to give durability and enchants to the target. And the one on the right is what also determines the cost. So there's 1 cost from the prior working and 8 cost from adding Silk Touch. Now if we switch these around, there's 2 cost to repair this tool and 1 cost because of prior working. So it's much cheaper to do it this way. And that's why I'd say, rather than trying to understand all these rules, because there's lots of little finite things, especially if you start having like swords where 1 has sharpness, 1 has looting, may both have unbreaking, things like that, it starts getting confusing, really fast. Your best bet is combining these in either direction and seeing which one costs less to do. The other thing to note, however, a little bit disappointing, but makes sense, keeps the game from being broken, is that the prior number of times it's been worked doesn't matter which side it's on, so you can't really cheat the system that way. So whichever order you put it, it will still have the prior worked penalty. Just do whichever one's cheaper. Now for a quick rundown of what we just went over. So the maximum number of times you can work something is 6. So when you're making a tool or a piece of armor, you want to minimize how many times you work it to make that tool, because more times you work it means you get to repair it less in the future. So a few things to note when doing that is don't combine books or minimize book combining. Minimize how many times you put books onto your tool or armor. Never ever rename something without also enchanting or repairing it at the same time, because if you just rename it by itself, you've just wasted one of your work times for doing pretty much nothing. And that's all you need to worry about for armor and tools. And then for repairing, a couple of things. Here's all of the different things and how you repair it. So diamond with diamonds, gold with gold, iron with iron, chainmail with iron, leather with leather, and wood with wood. And then this is what you want to repair it with. So if you're repairing a sword, always repair it with a full sword. But if you're repairing pieces of armor, you want to repair it with just diamonds, because that will be cheaper. And also remember to only repair once something's getting very low and about to break, or else once again, you'll be wasting one of your work uses. And finally over here, these 3 items, shears, fishing rod, and bow, can't be repaired with their materials. They have to be repaired with themselves. And that's all there is to it. I hope you learned something, and happy crafting!